Welcome. For this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Lucy Capon. Lucy is the founder and marketing director of her own marketing consultancy, Wellhouse, which provides strategic marketing expertise to businesses that really do aspire to drive growth and make positive change. Lucy herself has made a complete career switch, having been the head of marketing for 10 years in the city in the finance sector, to establishing her own business whilst working remotely from Thailand. Her aim there was really to direct her time and energy to where she could have the most positive impact with businesses that themselves really aim to do something useful in the world, whilst creating a better life and balance of her own. Let's dive in.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoë Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosner. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the career equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
So, hi, Lucy. Welcome to the session.
Hi, Zoe. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm delighted that you're joining us. And it sounds like you've had quite an adventurous past couple of years. And I'd love to know a little bit more about what made you make the switch and the changes.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely been a real shift for me in the last year. So I started my own marketing consultancy in January of 2024 after a career of about 20 years working in financial services in the city, very sort of corporate, traditional in-house roles. And I left my last role as head of marketing at a firm after 10 years. It's actually on my 10-year anniversary that I got on a plane to Thailand and worked on setting up my own business from there. And I was on a little island, Koh Noi, which is literally very untouristy, and worked mostly from a little cafe with Wi-Fi in the jungle, just setting up my business. And then from there, I flew north, hung out with some monks in Chiang Mai for a little bit, and then launched my business actually from Thailand. So I found a co-working space in Chiang Mai, signed my first client, and then went live initially with some LinkedIn training to 60 odd financial advisors from this random co-working space.
Wow, I kind of got this sense of like replenishment almost when you were talking then, like you were really feeding your and nourishing your soul in this shift and to make a difference for you. And what a contrast, like from the city sort of life. And
Yeah.
how wonderful that in this world of work that we have now, that we have the opportunity to be able to strike a balance between life and play and work remotely, but still do amazing work. So I'm really, really excited to explore more of this with you. Is there anything that's live for you currently that you're really excited to be working on that you want to share with us, or anything that sort of springs to mind?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think just touching on what you said there in terms of rejuvenation, pandemic years have been tough across the board for everyone. There were all sorts of other things going on personally and with family and health and things for me as well. And so what I wanted to do was really consider where and how I direct my time and energy with my new business. And so I was absolutely focused on my corporate career for 2 decades, and that was a priority above all else. It comes back to that idea of balance and, I guess, conscious use of time and energy. And so what's live for me now? I mean, I've had some really exciting conversations this week with some prospects, and really just getting to know new people and new businesses and learn new things has been the nicest thing this year for me.
Yeah.
I think it's one thing to be in-house where you get to know everything, but to go into meeting new businesses, new people, and get my head around completely new business problems to solve has been great. I think that's the main thing that I love doing, really, is solving problems. So leaving things in a better place than I found them. I've been in marketing for decades and been very lucky to work within some great businesses. So being able to apply all of that expertise and help generally, I would say, small to medium-sized businesses that really need a bit of marketing expertise to inject what they're trying to achieve and move them forward.
So really utilizing those skills that you've built up over a long period of time, but placing those skills in a place where you feel like you're having more meaning, more fulfillment from the work you're doing, and a greater impact to those that need it. That sounds
Yeah.
really vital for you. Is there anything that kind of in that frame of what your work now that you would say is a sort of the next challenge or conundrum or your next stretch that you think, oh, this is sort of the bit I'm thinking about right now?
One, I really miss my team, having been there for 10 years. But two, I really miss coaching and developing others. So
Mm.
with my company now at Wellhouse, there's me, but there's also a kind of distributed team of specialists in all of their various
Mhm.
marketing fields of expertise. But I really miss direct leadership, mentoring, development of others. And then I think, kind of along the same lines, really, I've always been a massive supporter and advocate of supporting other women in careers, having worked
Mm.
in really male dominated environments where I've,
Mm.
often been the only woman in the room with a seat at the table, which
Yeah.
is lovely that there's at least one woman in the room, great, but
But not enough.
it's not enough.
Yeah.
Some of the environments I've come from are not the most diverse.
Yeah. I guess if you're not careful, then it can feel quite lonely, can't it, when you sort of establish on your own and you're then reaching out and making new connections and pathways, but missing that kind of nourishment that you get from being in a team. And particularly when you're working with
Mm.
other women where you think, yeah, we've got each other's backs, it can become quite lonely, I suppose. So it sounds like the sort of challenge alongside the amazing work that you want to do through Wellhouse is also about how you kind of scratch that itch of how do I help others to really find their purpose and their own narrative in the work that they do, so
Mm.
they feel that they have a place at the table and have a voice and that they're heard. So that kind of comes through for me there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I'm thinking about in terms of, could that be another strand to my business in terms of providing that
Yeah.
training, coaching, education? Maybe one for 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what would be really interesting is if we can, through the sort of lens of the career equation, see if it can support you in some of this thinking, see what it uncovers, what new thinking comes up for you. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
Brilliant. What we'll do is we'll dive in to 4 kind of key moments or memories in your life through the lens of the career equation. And so for anyone who's new to the podcast or new to the career equation is a simple and practical method by which we can understand and explore our own thriving zone when it comes to our careers. And it simply says there's 4 key components. First component is skills. So we want to be playing to our skills, strengths, our gifts, our talents that we love to use and that we really want to develop further or make sure is really in our world of work day in, day out. The second component is passion. So we really want to be applying those skills to an area of passion. Now that could be a subject, a topic, an industry, marketing, developing narratives, or a way of being, problem solving, innovating, those kinds of things. So we want to take our skills and apply them to an area of passion. The third component is impact. So we want to see success in that work. We want to see that it has meaning and fulfillment, and we feel like we're making a difference. So we're taking our skills, applying them to an area of passion, and having an impact in a way that it matters to us. And the fourth component, which is the sort of area that we often overlook and put up with in our lives, is environmental fit. And it basically means that without being in the right kind of environment for us to be able to be at our best, we're going to struggle to thrive. So we really want to be in an environment that nourishes who we are as an individual, that has the sort of key components to help us be at our best. We'll explore some of those things through some moments in your story so far, Lucy, if that's okay. Obviously, a good place to start would be with skills. So I wonder if you could cast your mind back to younger Lucy and think about a time when you first realized you thought, hey, you know what? I'm really good at this. I've got a skill in this, my superpower, if you like.
Yeah, I love that question. I grew up in what I would describe as a slightly challenging environment. And I share this not for people to get their tiny violins out for me, but really just to sort of set the scene. I grew up in a house effectively with 3 people that had their own mental health challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was a chronic alcoholic. My mum had depression, anxiety. My brother was autistic, although that wasn't diagnosed till much later on. But against that backdrop, I, for various reasons, switched schools quite a lot. And there was a period of about 2 years where I was actually kept at home and was off school completely. So I had a handful of tutors in that time, but mostly I was just self-taught. It was just me and a bunch of books, a bunch of textbooks, the occasional tutor, a piano for company, and a cat. And really, that was kind of where I discovered, one, I had the discipline to carry on learning, but there was that natural curiosity there that I always like learning new things. And I had the opportunity, I guess, to do that to my heart's content for a good couple of years. It was me working my way through textbooks on my own. I missed out on a lot. I missed out on a lot of, I guess, cultural references. And even to this day, there's like whole chunks of like the 80s and 90s that I just don't quite get.
Mm.
But the upshot of it was that when I finally did return to a school, I finally started getting some feedback on my work. And I just remember this sort of, I hadn't been at this new school very long, age 14. It was an all girls school. You can imagine that was quite challenging. 14-year-old girls being what they can be. But I remember handing in sort of my first bit of English homework at this new school. And it was a lengthy essay or something on Romeo and Juliet, which was something I'd studied on my own while I'd been at home, and getting it back, and I had a great mark for it. And I just remember that feeling, even to this day, of just being so chuffed, and I guess also slightly astonished that I'd got a really good mark. And it was probably the first feedback I'd had from anyone in years on anything that I'd done. So I just remember that feeling of, oh, hang on, one, I've done a really good job. Maybe I'm actually quite good at this. I really enjoyed doing it. I guess it's just something that's stayed with me since, is that continuous desire to learn something new. That has never gone away. I'm still surrounded by books. That has carried through. But it was something that didn't dawn on me till much later on when I got into marketing, was actually distilling information into a nice succinct prose or text, copywriting, thinking about how to position something, and then continually learning something new. Actually, ideal skills for a career in marketing.
I love this idea of what has never gone away that Lucy tapped into when thinking about those skills, gifts, and talents that she developed early in her life when she had a natural ability for them. She recognised that her flair for distilling information, writing copy, thinking about how to position something, and learning new things had never gone away, and continued to be prominent in the work that she did in her corporate role, but significantly still strongly feature now. When we take time to think about what we're good at, sometimes we forget to look at what has never gone away. So my invitation to you is to do just that. If you think back to your early life, what memories come up for you for moments when you realised you had a gift for something, a special skill, a real strength? What are they? Have they been in play throughout your career? Do they still feature now? Would you like them to feature more? How could you make that happen?
Really appreciate you sharing, a little bit of your backstory there, because I think it does help to set the context. And also that, we don't all have perfect upbringings and perfect situations, but what you were able to draw from that in terms of a positive, I kind of got this sense of, you did this stuff, you did this research, you did this learning, you did this growing, you became you. And you did that alone, so that kind of hunger and appetite to keep learning and keep applying yourself and digging really deep, I'm sure at times, against the odds almost. And it's out of this natural, and you said the words natural curiosity, to be more than you were being dealt with at the time, more than the sort of what was in front of you in terms of the family situation, to think, I want to absorb more and find out more. And I think that then sounds like it's really led into that ability to be able to understand what sits behind a story, whether that's for an individual or a company or an organization, and help them translate that into a narrative that works for them. So would it be true to say that those skills are still really playing in the work that you do now?
Yeah, completely. I think I use the term natural curiosity. I think other people sometimes would class it as nosiness, but I prefer natural curiosity. Absolutely. So I think what I found actually also came very naturally during the pandemic, when everything was a bit chaotic and we were all at home. And now I'm running my own business, is that discipline. So I'm still getting up. I've never been a person that sits around in their pajamas all day. I am up, I'm exercising, I'm logged on, I'm thinking, I am actively sort of managing my time, my schedule,
Yeah.
and I've always had that discipline with things. And then, yeah, absolutely, when it comes to understanding new businesses, and it ties a little bit back to kind of problem solving as well. Like, tell me what you're trying to achieve, and I will work out how we're going to get there and do that in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. So if we move then into this idea of passions, tell me about a moment where you were truly loving what you were doing.
I'm going back quite a way now to probably my late 20s. And it was when I first became a line manager. And so up to that point, it had just been me doing all of the work. I was working at a large insurance firm and finally had a direct report of my own. And I'd been very fortunate in that I'd had wonderful line managers in previous roles as well, who'd been very good at kind of coaching and developing me. And it was the first time that I was able to do that for someone else. And she was super bright. We were working on a new website build together. And it was the first time I'd kind of had to not do the work myself, but brief someone else to do it that was reporting to me and guide them and coach them. Really took a bit of a mindset shift as well. I think when you first start line managing others and you've been used to just doing everything yourself and you go, well, it's quicker to do it myself and give it to someone else. But actually being able to guide someone else to get a great result
Mm.
and work collaboratively and see that she then had learned something new to take that skill forward herself and in further in her career. I think that again was another just a bit of a light bulb moment for me as well, with like, oh gosh, I really like doing this.
What did you notice about her through that process of being coached and mentored by you?
Her response to receiving the feedback was great. She was like a sponge, which I guess I'd kind of been myself previously. And so what I
Mm.
noticed in her was one, her ability to learn and take on feedback, and being so proud of the result that she'd done
Mm.
because she'd finally written pretty much an entire website, all the copy for it herself. I remember it took a couple of
Mm.
iterations, but actually just sticking with, no, don't do it for her, help her get there, help her to think about all of the
Mm.
angles.
Yeah, that sense for her, I guess, of her own personal growth
Yeah.
through her own learning of, like you say, reiterations. We don't get it right perfect first time, but if you've given her the answers every time or told her exactly how to do it, the growth isn't there then, is it? But it's a partnership. It isn't I say you do. If well, not if you want a great result as an end of it in terms of fulfilling careers, I don't think. Given what you said earlier about the sort of stretch or the challenge for you now is like that feels like that's the bit that you want to inject a bit more into the business. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's definitely an opportunity to do that. If I think about maybe one of my existing clients, they have a really small in-house team. I don't necessarily want to just sort of be an outsourced solution for delivery. I would much rather enable others to do, that then frees up my brain to learn and think about the next problem to solve for them. And
Mm.
so I think there's potential to explore that a little bit, both with a live client now, but that could be developed a bit more into a more formal strand of my business in
Yeah.
terms of, let me coach your
Mm.
marketing teams and be more of a kind of marketing
Yeah.
coach role, enabling others,
Yeah.
because ultimately
Mm.
it's going to be more cost effective rather than outsourcing something constantly.
Yes. Actually, I was going to move on to impact in that sense of when do you feel like actually my work was having great meaning, where I felt like closing the office at the end of the day and thinking I'm making a difference. Where does that take you in terms of a memory? Is it to this client or somewhere else?
Yeah, I would say, and this could be just sort of that recency bias, it's the most recent thing I've been doing with my own company this year. But I would say I feel like I've been able to make the most impact with the work I've been doing with all of my clients this year, actually. So I've got one
Mm.
client that has no in-house marketing at all, and they've been going for a number of years already, very successfully without marketing, but now recognise
Mhm.
there's a need to shift. And I've had the pleasure really of having a nice blank canvas to work from. The CEO, the senior
Mm.
team have been very generous with their time, but helpfully, they've also got a really clear vision and strategy for their business. And Having worked with a number of organisations, that's not always the case, but they've really placed some trust in me to say, right, here's what we're trying to achieve. You tell us what you need to do from a marketing perspective. And then they've allowed me to get on with my job and do it as well. And they'll say, what do you need from us to do that? Which is a lovely position to be in. So to start from blank canvas, clear direction, a clear place to direct my energy, my expertise, and move things forward, it feels to me like that's been the most impactful thing that I've done in a while.
And that really beautifully, I suppose, connects with what you were saying about your passion. And you mentioned this recent client work in terms of growing in-house expertise for them and sharing your knowledge through mentoring and coaching. And I get this sense of you wanting to create environments in organizations or in people where they can do their best work and the business can thrive. And that won't therefore always be you going in and doing for them. It'll be you almost coaching and mentoring them into that space. So it kind of plays to your strength of, you know, creating the discipline they need, helping them with the strategy, getting that clarity around narrative, but also at the same time, coaching them through that process so they can do that themselves going forward.
It just comes back to what is the purpose of what we're trying to achieve, and the sort of environment that I want to create with Wellhouse and for my clients is one of trust, autonomy, efficiency, clear direction, openness, transparency. It just makes everything so much easier.
Hear to that. Definitely. So let me switch it then and take you perhaps to a more slightly more uncomfortable place when we talk about environment. When do you feel, when you look back, when there was a moment where you thought that the environment was working against you, or you thought these are not the right conditions for me to be at my best and thrive?
I've definitely worked in environments where there really wasn't clear direction. There was a lot of dysfunction, I would say, at quite a senior level. There wasn't clarity over direction. There were conflicting views of things. I've worked also in an environment where marketing was viewed as a kind of colouring in function. It was a very old school marketing service things. They make things look pretty. I hear a lot of marketers come up against this, but marketing's evolved hugely from 2 to 3 decades ago. It's a battle where you expend an awful lot of energy just managing individuals, egos, the office politics, all of that side of things. It's such a waste of energy when you could be directing that to do something useful.
And I get a real sense, even you like your body language in terms of what I see, but also what I hear is that kind of restriction, it was uncomfortable, it was exhausting. You know, that sense of complete opposite of what you described in terms of what you're aiming to achieve through Wellhouse. Lots of people that I coach, and I'm sure you've had the same experience in dialogues you've had, wonder why they're not in that thriving zone or in their sort of sweet spot. And often it's because we're putting up with things in the conditions, if you like, of the soil in terms of environment. That's how I like to think of it often, is like our feet are planted in soil. And if those nutrients aren't right, we're not going to thrive. But we seem to overlook it and just sometimes it's like, well, that's how it is around here. But that's not how it has to be. But everyone's got an invested interest in making changes, therefore, so it becomes more of a place that people can thrive. And I really got a sense of that from you about the difference you want to make in the work that you're doing compared to perhaps environments that you'd experienced before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's also something there around earlier in my career and the sort of level of confidence that I now have. Time has gone on and that confidence has grown. For me, imposter syndrome was no longer a thing.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I have some big egotistical kind of view of my own ability. I'm still very humble and aware of my strengths and weaknesses. But I guess I'd reached a point where I thought, hang on, I actually do know what I'm doing. In a way, I was trying to take the positive from everything. I was go, okay, what can I take from this less functional environment? You know, you get to learn a lot about people, personalities, egos, what drives people, what motivates people, what people are fearful of, all of those things, incredibly helpful things to better understand. And I think that has helped me when it's come to working with prospects and clients now, because I'm instantly sort of considering all of those. But in terms of the environment that I want to create, absolutely, it's informed that environment for Wellhouse for sure.
I grew up in a corporate world in finance as well, and I was young and female in an organization that had very few female managers. So I definitely kind of can hear that from what you were saying about wanting a place at the table, but feeling like you're still in that process of trying to prove your
Yes.
place at the
Yeah.
table. It does make me wonder sometimes how we get to a place where, if I take myself personally, that I don't feel I have to wait until I'm in my 50s to feel confident about saying no to something, or this would need to happen in order for me to be at my best, or, those kinds of things. It seems to be that it's later for women to have that kind of confidence to be able to say those things, just in the conversations that I have. What I love is that you're drawing on those experiences of those environments where they weren't conducive to you working at your best, but using that to be able to collaborate in organizations where there will be those kinds of personalities that are very driven and specific about their way. And I think that's it, isn't it? It's about seeing people as individuals, not just
Mm.
the business name or the brand name, but everybody in that has an individual need in terms of their own thriving zone. And that's certainly what the equation tries to understand, is to see people as an individual and to understand their uniqueness, not just we're all the same because we all sit under this brand.
Every company or brand is made up of a bunch of individuals, and ultimately people do business with other people. And I think that's such an important point to come back to. We're all human beings first and workers second, and work is necessarily such a huge part of our lives all the time. That's something that I have repeatedly come back to, is just to remember we're all humans. We've all got lives. We've all got stuff going on outside of work as well. During that pandemic, for me, I had a parent who had dementia. I had a caring responsibility, and commuting just not compatible with being on hand for a family member that needed care.
Yeah.
And I had team members who had a kid in nursery, or some have a couple of kids under 4. And so how do you combine that with the rigidity of the traditional 9 to 5? How do we create that environment that best supports everyone in their circumstances?
How do you know that you're creating the right working environment for your talent to thrive? Quite simply, you have to ask them. You have to cultivate a relationship with them that means that they trust the space you create, open up that dialogue, so they feel they can be honest and open about what they love and they don't love, what's helping them or hindering them, nourishing them or starving them. No amount of glossy branding brochures, competency and behaviour frameworks, company value charts can do this for you. Spending time exploring with someone what helps them to be at their best and do their best work is invaluable. And I promise that you will gain so much insight from them. It doesn't mean that you have to fix everything. It means you explore together what things they can tweak and adjust, what things you can do to help, and perhaps what things the wider organisation needs to figure out. But not going there means potentially surprise resignations, poor performance, low morale, increased sickness, all those sorts of things. So try it out. In your next one-to-one, ask them, what helps you to be at your best and doing your best work?
I love what you said earlier about, we're human beings. And I think I heard the phrase once about we should spend a lot more time human being rather than human doing, and really understanding what sits behind that being, which is understanding what people need in order to be at their best, but also what the business needs. It's not just a one-way street, is it? It's a collaborative negotiation around what works for us and for you. So yeah, kind of explored 4 key moments, and I'd love to sort of have a way of bringing that together for you. And what we tend to do is combine your sort of like top things from each component into what we call a career design statement. And if you like, it's a way of saying, this is my thriving zone. This is my sort of North Star that guides me in the work that I do, all the way that I move my business forward. And it's always a first messy draft. It's never perfect to start with, but it gives us a way of succinctly pulling together, I think, what we've been chatting through. And the first bit is super easy because you just have to say your name. So I say I, and you say
Lucy Capon.
will use my skills in. So given our conversation, what's your sort of top 2 or 3 skills that you would definitely want to be in play?
Problem solving, communication. I want to say being a human.
Well, let's go with being human for the minute. And my passion for, so given again our conversation, What's your sort of passion that you really want to play into in terms of being energized by being in and around?
Comes back to that natural nosiness or being curious,
Being curious, yeah.
understanding what matters most to a business, and then distilling that into a narrative and a plan to help achieve whatever it is needs to be achieved.
Perfect. So you're sort of moving into the third part anyway there, because the next bit is using these skills and my passion for two. So the impact is, so what's the difference you want to make?
The difference, I always want to make a positive impact, and to do that in the most efficient way possible.
The fourth part is environment. So an environment that is, what are the key components for you in terms of environment that will help you be at your best?
Environment. I would say having a clear direction, trust, autonomy. Oh, this is a long list. Space and flexibility to do my job well.
So this is what I heard. I, Lucy, will use my skills in problem solving, collaborating, and bringing the human touch, and my passion for being curious, understanding what matters most, and distilling that into a narrative and a plan of action to make a positive difference and leave a place better than I found it in a most efficient way possible. And an environment that has clear direction, has trust, autonomy, space, and flexibility works best for me.
Yeah, I think that sums everything up. Pleasingly, I would say it's quite nicely aligned with Wellhouse.
Brilliant.
It's really helpful in kind of having that North Star to come back to and keep coming back to.
Absolutely. It's always a sort of messy draft to start with. So it gives you something you can say, oh, I like that bit, but I'd switch this bit about, or I've missed out something here. But it gives you a place to start from where you say, yeah, this is my kind of guiding star. So when I'm making decisions and stretch and pushing forward with, for me or the business, this is like my area to play with where I know I'm going to be hitting closer to my sweet spot, my thriving zone. If you had to score it out of 10, where would you feel you are right now in terms of playing to that guiding star?
I think because I'm always a tough marker on myself, at least, I'd say a 7.
For you to feel like you would move closer to it, so eking that 7, 7.5 up to 8 and beyond, what do you think your next move would be to make that happen?
There's probably another layer of questioning for certainly at least one of my clients to make sure that what we're doing is really hitting the mark.
Is what we're doing making the difference that I'm setting out to do in my statement? When we think about your sort of challenge earlier, when I said, what's the sort of next stretch or what would you like to sort of step into? And you talked a little bit about that kind of coaching and mentoring angle. Does any of our discussion today help you move that along a bit?
It's hammered home how much I really do like coaching and mentoring. I've done it before, I enjoy it. And so potentially thinking more about how I formalize that as a thing that I offer as another strand of my business, I think would be a good thing.
Often by visiting memories, we sometimes forget to re-engage with the things that we loved because it just seems like, well, that was me ages ago. But actually hearing you describe the joy that you had from coaching, that young, bright spark that you had that was full of energy and enthusiasm has kind of reignited that. If you were sat side by side with young Lucy, what would your words of wisdom be to her around her future world of work?
Oh, that is a potentially really deep question. One, you'll be okay. Learn to use your voice. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in your own ability.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And I think not just young Lucy, but there's lots of young whoever's out there that could really do with hearing that message. So thank you for being really generous with that. And finally, then, if people are thinking, I want to connect with Lucy, I want to find out more about Wellhouse, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? And we'll make sure this goes in the show notes.
That would be great. So LinkedIn, so my personal profile, or Wellhouse, visit wellhousemarketing.com.
Well, I just want to take a moment, Lucy, to thank you for joining me as a guest for the Career Equation podcast. really interesting to explore your big shift, career shift, in terms of city life to Thailand and new business. And I'm really excited for you because I really get a sense of it playing much more to your thriving zone in terms of what you're doing now. I wish you all the best, and I know we'll keep in touch, and I look forward to seeing what happens next for you.
Thank you, Zoe. It's been lovely to chat to you. It's been really helpful. It's been really insightful, and you've certainly given me quite a lot to think about as well. So thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
And Zoë Schofield. Signing off.